Recent studies show students are optimistic about their financial future and abilities to repay their student debt, despite their growing cost of living and increasing tuition expenses. Blair Manton from Sands & Associates joins us with some tips on how to tackle student debt. Welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you. And this is the thing, I mean, students graduate, they have this mound of student debt, and with no real, an unreal perception of how quickly they'll be able to pay that off. And you have a study that was commissioned that illustrates that.
Exactly, yeah. So we went out to campuses SFU and UBC, and we surveyed a few hundred students, almost 500 students. We wanted to know, what's this problem with student debt? How does it start on campus? And what we found is a couple things right away. 80% of students are expecting to have student debt. So student debt's a fact of life. 80% of people expect to have up to $20,000 of student debt. But what was really fascinating was that 2/3 of them think they'll be paid off within a year.
That's really quite surprising.
It's hugely surprising, yeah. They have an overly optimistic view or just don't quite understand how long it's going to take to clear $20,000 of debt.
Right, okay. So we hear a lot about financial literacy and young people getting into trouble when it comes to that. So how do credit cards factor into student debt?
So this was a huge surprise to us too. So I remember back when I was in school at Frost Week, the credit card companies would show up, they'd have a couple booths and then they'd leave. What we found recently is that people are being offered credit multiple times throughout the year. 3/4 of students are getting between 3 and 6 offers of credit almost every couple months. Credit card companies are saying, hey, do you need a credit card? Do you need a credit card? What's interesting is that folks at this stage in their life, they really don't need debt and they don't have the tools to handle it. By being a student, most of them have no income, they've got no job, they've got no assets, so why are we trying to get them, essentially hooked on credit very young on campus?
Yeah, and it keeps building and building. So what should students do if they are having a difficult time paying off their loans after graduation?
Well, the first thing to understand is that student debt is different than just about any other debt. So if you owe Visa or MasterCard, they've got to jump through a bunch of hoops before they can really impact your life. Student debt doesn't have to jump through any hoops. It's a government debt. So if you go silent on student loans, they've got the right to go to your employer, start to take up to 1/3 of your wages. They've got the right to, register on your house if you own a house at this point. So they've got some extra powers. The number one thing is to stay in contact with them. Even if you can't pay student loans, communication is often as good as cash. If it's a temporary problem, they're probably going to work with you. You're probably going to be okay. They'll give you some interest relief and you can move on.
Okay, so what if you simply just have so much debt that you absolutely can't pay it off?
Yeah, so in those situations, you really got to look at what options are available to you legally to restructure your debt. So, first off, you have to make a good faith effort to work in your field. So after you've graduated, you have to really try to earn some income to get some return on that investment. But if it's to the point where you've worked for a number of years and you've just got too much debt, you've got to realize there are options available to you. You're able to file what's called a consumer proposal, where you can reduce the debt, stop the interest, and you get up to 5 years to pay it off. That's your best alternative to bankruptcy.
And is everyone eligible for a consumer proposal then?
Well, two main things. So again, you've got to make that effort to pay off the debt. So it has to be 7 years from when you were last a student. So you can't come out of school, get really shocked by your debt and go and file a consumer proposal the next day. You've really got to try to do your best for a period of time. So it has to be 7 years. The other test is you legitimately have to not be able to pay your debt. If you're coming out of school and you are, earning well more than the average income and you're able to make payments on your debts, the right thing to do is to pay that debt off in full if you're able to do it.
And just to clarify, consumer proposal is different than filing for bankruptcy.
Absolutely. So it's the best alternative to bankruptcy. It's the way to reduce your debt, stop the interest, but not have to file for bankruptcy.
If it comes to that. All right, Blair, good advice this morning. Thank you for that. If you want to watch this segment again, go to our website, ctvmorninglive.ca.